All right, so hello everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about something very, very interesting, right? Something that is very, very close to my heart, which is the art of storytelling, right? And I'm going to talk about how we're going to be able to crack all our interviews, be it our interviews for admission into management institutions, be it our first job interviews, interview anywhere and everywhere. It's all about the art of storytelling and your presence of mind, right? Your presence of mind will determine how spontaneous you're able to be in order to answer all the questions that are put forth to you, and the art of storytelling will determine how well you're able to basically pitch yourself, how well you're able to sell yourself, right? And it all depends on how you're packaging yourself, right? It's all about the packaging. It's all about your personal story, how well you're able to structure it, and how well you're able to connect with your jury members basis your personal story, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell you a story, right? And then we'll dissect it. Once I'm done telling that story, we're going to dissect it. All right. So this Cessna aircraft is taking off from the eastern regions of the country and it's heading to Havana, but it will not end up there. It's going to crash into the sea, and it does. And the news of it spread like 100 fires, right? A nation begins to mourn. People flock to the seas and they do something extraordinary. They do something that had never been done before, that had never been seen before, that had never been heard of before. A nation starts throwing flowers into the sea, right? A nation had lost its most beloved son. A nation had lost its most beloved hero. Any idea who that is? Any idea who I'm talking about? It's not Fidel Castro. It's not Che Guevara. It's Camilo. This is a person who was deeply loved by the Cuban people. Camilo Cienfuegos, the general of the Cuban Revolutionary Army, right? We don't hear of him, but it's a story that is very, very close to my heart because of the magnanimity of the person and because of the impact that it had on the entire country. When Cuba became independent and Fidel Castro took to the stage, all the Cuban people, they were not chanting Fidel, they were not chanting Castro, they were not chanting Libre, they were not chanting Cuba. The entire country was chanting this guy's name, Camilo, 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 right? And the sound of it, the thumping sound of it, overpowered the speech of Fidel Castro, and he decided that something had to be done. He decided right then and there on the stage that Camilo will have to die, that Camille's plane will have to crash, and it did. And till date, on the 28th of October, every day, school children all across the country in Cuba go to the seas and everybody throws flowers into the sea to commemorate and remember and celebrate this figure in their revolutionary past. That is the impact Camilo Cienfuegos had. Cienfuegos literally translating to 100 fires. Yeah. So this is a story, right? This is a story that I just told. This is a story that I just related. Now let's talk about the three characteristics that I try to bring about through the story. Right. The first characteristic that I tried to bring forth was intrigue, right? Throughout my storytelling, I was sharing images with you, right? I shared the image of an aircraft. I shared the image of the figure that we were talking about. We were talking about Camilo Cienfuegos, right? I shared his photograph, right? I tried to build up intrigue, right? So, intrigue, my friends, is very, very important to each and every story that you tell. When somebody asks you a question, tell me about yourself, right? You are supposed to build some anticipation. You're supposed to start off by telling something that will build up some anticipation in the jury members, right? You want to start off, for example, if somebody asks me, Pranku, tell me about yourself, right? I'm going to start off by talking about storytelling, and I'm going to start off by talking about writing, and only then later I'll connect the dots and I say that this is how I wrote my first book, right? So that is what you have to do. You have to start off by building some intrigue, building some anticipation, right? Intrigue essentially is when anticipation meets uncertainty, right? When anticipation meets uncertainty. Now there are times when, our friends are trying to tell us stories and we already know what they're going to say, right? We already know what they're going to say because we can predict it all. So that is anticipate, that is not a lot of anticipation but a lot of certainty. And when there's certainty but there is no anticipation, it's just impatience. We just jump the gun, we just jump to the conclusions, right? And that's not something that we want to do, right? And we don't want to just keep on building anticipation, right? We don't want to just keep on doing that, क्योंकि उसमें क्या हो जाएगा, it will be all anticipation and there will be zero certainty, right? All anticipation and zero certainty means confusion, right? People get confused, they don't know who you are, they get confused by everything that you're trying to tell them. They are not able to form a mental map of who you are, right? If I keep on talking about 100 different things, people will be like, yaar tu mere ko ye bata, Prankur hai kaun, right? So when somebody asks you a question, tell me about yourself, the story that you want to tell them has to be a mixture of anticipation and a mixture of uncertainty. You don't want to come off as something that people are able to jump the guns to. You don't want to be totally predictable, right? People don't want to be like, yeah, acha, this is another book that I'm just going to throw away. No, you have to show them the cover first, right? You have to build anticipation through the book cover, then flip a few pages, right? Flip a few pages. Keep them asking questions, keep them engaged, right? As you keep them engaged, they want to keep on digging deeper, right? And that is what you want, right? That is what you want. So build some anticipation and build some uncertainty. Don't just go and be like, okay, I am XYZ, right? Tell me about yourself. I am Prankur Arora. I went to Amity International School. I went to Delhi University. I majored in economics. Then I started writing. Then I wrote a book. No, that is not how you do it. Yeah, build some anticipation. Talk about what how you got into the creative industry. Talk, if somebody were to ask me, I will start talking about what were my inspirations, right? Why did storytelling pique my curiosity, right? What are the films, what are the books that influence me the most, right? Build that anticipation to the payoff, where you can tell, okay, fine, you know what, this is the day I decided that I'm going to be an author, right? I want to build up to it, right? That is what I'm trying to come at. The next is empathy, right? Throughout the story that I was telling you, I was trying to build some empathy in you, right? I was trying to give you emotional inputs. I was telling you that this is a figure that was celebrated by the Cuban people. This is a figure that people loved. This is a figure that inspired people to throw flowers into the sea spontaneously when they heard the news that he had died, right? I tried to build a lot of empathy. So build empathy about yourself, right? Build empathy. Give them emotional inputs. Give your jury members emotional inputs throughout your answer, right? Tell them, tell them what influences you. Tell them about your moral stance, right? So talk about those emotional inputs so that they're able to build empathy. And finally, have a closure to the story. Have an interesting payoff. Have an interesting payoff. In the beginning of the story, I talked about how the news spread like 100 fires. And to close the story, I said, this is Camilo Cienfuegas. Cienfuegas literally translating to 100 fires. So I closed the loop, right? So when you end your story, right? When you end your story, you should be able to close the loop, right? Don't leave them hanging. Don't give them an open ended story. This is not an independent film. This is your life that you're talking about. This is your career that you're talking about. So close the loop, right? Give your audience the closure, right? Help them finish the book, right? You want to give them a good experience, but help them finish the book right then and there. Yes. So these are three characteristics that I really, really want you to focus on when you're telling your personal stories, right? Now, another thing that I want us to discuss is the story spine. Yeah. So the story spine was developed by the Pixar studios, right? So it goes something like this. Once upon a time, every day, but one day, because of that, until finally, ever since then. So this is the skeleton of a story. So even when you're crafting your personal stories, you've got to talk about once upon a time this happened. Every day this kept on happening. But one day there was a shift. Because of that, these are the consequences until finally I decided that this is something that I really, really want to do. And ever since then, this is what I've been doing. Right. So essentially, this is going to be the framework of the story that you develop. Right. For example, all of us, I am assuming, have seen Three Idiots. Right. So once upon a time, there was an engineering college. Every day, uh, students in that engineering college would make merry. They would have fun. They would drink and sit on the stairs, on the steps of the college, and talk endlessly and just have a merry time. But one day, they got really, really drunk and they pissed at the they pissed at the door of the professor, whatever his name was. I think his name was Virus, right? They pissed at the door of Virus, and because of that, there were consequences. Virus caught them. Virus tried to influence one of those friends to give the names of the others who were involved in that ruckus. He did not. He committed suicide. He tried to commit suicide. Because of that, people understood the importance of companionship, of real education. Because of that, n number of things happened until finally one fine day there was heavy rainfall and Virus's daughter was pregnant and she had to deliver a baby. But the roads were blocked and there was it was almost as if the roads were flooding, right? And then this guy fashioned a machine out of a vacuum cleaner and delivered the baby. Ever since then, Virus understood the importance of real education, which was different from how he'd been taking education, right? How he'd been teaching. It was very different from the value system that he'd already developed. So this is the story of Three Idiots. Now this is a spine where तुम दुनिया की कोई भी स्टोरी उठा लो ना, वो इस स्पाइन में फिट हो जाएगी. ठीक है, कोई भी स्टोरी उठा लो, it will fit into the spine, right? So the first 2 points, which is once upon a time and every day, it talks about the status quo, right? What is the status quo? What is happening every day, right? So once upon a time and every day is the status quo. Understand, guys, you don't have to use these phrases. You don't have to wo bole tell me about yourself. You don't have to go as if once upon a time my parents got married and then 1 year later or 2 years later I was born. No, that is not what you have to begin with. You don't have to use these phrases. All right, you don't have to use these phrases. But this is a spine. This should give you the context. Where do you begin your story? You begin your story by talking about the status quo, right? You talk about what is going on. You talk about the status quo, right? And then there is this phrase that goes, but one day. What is but one day? But one day means that you're talking about a shift in the status quo. Something happened due to which things changed. And then you talk about consequences, because of that, because of that, because of that, this will give you the consequences. What are the consequences because of that shift, because of that change in the status quo, right? Until finally is basically when the story is coming to closure, right? Consequences hote rahe until finally X happened, until finally XYZ happened. So until finally is basically the payoff of the story. You're heading towards the closure, right? It is the payoff of the story. ever since then ever since then gives you the new status quo, right? Now that things have changed, now that there were so many consequences and there was a conclusion, what is the new status quo, right? So ever since then is the new status quo. And then you can add a moral of the story as well, right? Just to pique the curiosity of your audience, of your jury members, right? So of your interviewers, right? So just to pique the curiosity, you can even add a moral of the story, right? So that's that. Now I've discussed the characteristics, right? I discussed the characteristics that your story should have. It should build intrigue. It should be able to inspire empathy in your interviews. There should be a closure, right? Your interviewers need to be able to close the circle of XYZ, right? XYZ means your name. If I'm going to talk about Prankur, the interviewers should be able to map they should be able to create a mental model of who Prankur Arora is, right? And then this is the story spine, right? This is the structure. This is the framework where your story should fit. You start with the status quo. You talk about the shift in the status quo and the consequences. Then you talk about the conclusion because of the consequences. And then you talk about the new status quo. And then you give a moral of the story, right? So there's that. So with this, I hope you're able to crack all your interviews with this knowledge, right? Do comment if you like this video. I'll then manufacture a few more videos basis the knowledge that I have on the art of storytelling and the art of interviews and the art of presentation. That is what I do, right? I have been working with a lot of organizations. I've consulted with companies like Interglobe, BD India, Marico. This is what I do. This is what I teach. I teach people how to talk. I teach people how to present themselves. I teach people how to be better public speakers, right? That's my job. That's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing in the learning and development industry. I'm also a published author, right? So there's a lot that I know about storytelling. There's a lot. I have some knowledge about crafting stories. I've been able to craft stories, and that is why I got published, right? So that is my claim to fame. And I hope that you like this video. Do comment and do press the like button, right? Just to give me some validation, right? And I keep on manufacturing videos on this CAT4MBA channel for you all, right? Right now, I'm running a grammar series, so I hope that you guys join me in that grammar series and learn a few tips and tricks about cracking your grammar based and vocabulary based questions, right? So there's that. And yeah, if you are going to be going to the Unacademy platform, I recommend that you do, because there the pedagogy is simplified. Right now you're watching lectures on YouTube. When you go to the platform, there's a more formal pedagogy that will help you better yourself, that will help you upskill yourself, right? And should you like the platform, should you like the software, and should you choose to subscribe, you can use my name Prankur to get an extra 10% off on the same. With that, I'll end this video. I hope you liked it and that you benefit out of it. I'll see you again, right? Stay safe and stay strong. See you.